Hey girl, congratulations on getting engaged. I am so excited for you. May this be the beginning of a beautiful chapter full of stories, full of amazing adventures together. I am so excited for you. But first, you have a wedding to plan. Hey, I'm Marie, your trusted flower fairy, and today I want to help you. I don't know where exactly you are in wedding planning. Maybe you just got engaged, maybe you already hired a planner, maybe you're DIYing, but if you are looking to hire a wedding florist or a full designer to help you with your flowers, today I want to give you 6 tips on how to do that successfully so you get the most bang for your buck. And as I'm doing that, I had these leftover flowers, so I decided to make you an arrangement while I give you the tips and tricks on how to hire your wedding florist. And yeah, let's have some fun. Okay, so before I go into my first tip, I do want to remind you guys, I created this really cool resource for you, which is pretty much a checklist of different flowers you might need for your wedding. So obviously there's the bouquets, the boutonnieres, and the simple stuff, the personals, but I also have different ceremony flowers, different reception flowers that you might need. And this list really helps you get organized. So when you're thinking about your budget, and which we'll get to later in this video, but as you're planning your flowers and before you hire somebody, you have a good sense of what it is that you're looking for, which obviously anything that you feel more confident in, you tend to navigate the area better. So I highly recommend downloading it. It's free, and yeah, let me know how you like it. Also, as I'm going over the first tip, I'm going to be making my base, which is like my mechanics for this arrangement. So yeah, let's see. I have some chicken wire, obviously my vessel, some tools, very important, water. So the first tip into hiring your wedding florist is to get inspired. Yeah, so this part I think might be the most fun part of actually hiring a wedding florist, because this is a part you really get lost into flower world, right? You really look at photos and videos and you save things in different folders, but you really get a sense of what it is that you like. Are you a maximalist, right? Do you like big, lush, beautiful flowers, or are you more of a minimalist and you love the Lily of the Valley bouquet Sophia Richie was currently carrying? Very, very elegant, modern, with, I don't know, feels like a garden style wedding, but beautiful, right? So you get a sense of what it is that you like, and everything ties in, right? So how's your home right now? How's your decor? How's your wardrobe? Like, really, your flowers is an expression of who you are, and it should be an expression of who you are. And I really recommend doing this and really get lost in it and not think about budget or logistics in this part, because you don't want your flowers to be generic, right? If you're watching this video, I'm guessing you actually care and you would prefer to have something when you reflect back 20 years from now, you feel like, wow, this was really beautiful and it was a true representation of me at that time of my life. So I really encourage you to get lost into your own creativity. So ways of doing that is maybe making arrangements, right? Going to your local flower store or bodega or farmer's market, shop for flowers, make some stuff at home with your friends, with your partner, or even go into botanical gardens, right? Like, take a walk into your local botanical garden. Maybe if you're in New York, for example, go to the flower market on 28th Street between 6th and 7th Avenue. Go early, like 7 in the morning, and you will see how gorgeous, these flowers are. Especially when it's quiet, the city is still kind of asleep, and it's just beautiful. So really get inspired to not only know what you like, but also to make sure you get a good bang for your buck. So when you know what you like, it helps when your florist just shows you, basic roses, you can be like, actually, I don't know. I mean, that's cool, but what else are you adding to it, right? Like, you want to have somewhat of a knowledge of what it is that you like and the feel, so that way your flowers are the best representation of you. So the second step that we're going to go over is your deliverables. So that's when you start to get a little bit more technical, and this is where my download and my resource is extremely useful, because you really start to organize your flowers. So now you have what you want in terms of aesthetic and look and feel, and now you have to actually break it down into what you actually need, right? So if you have 100 guests and you have 10 tables, 10 guests per table, you can tell how many centerpieces you want. And then you can decide, do you want high centerpieces, maybe half high, half low, maybe you want all high, or maybe all lows, or maybe you want to do cluster bud vases, or maybe even candle arrangements, right? Which I personally love when you mix them with bud vases. Much more economical, but if you layer them, they can be really impactful and beautiful. Maybe you want a combination of candles and flowers. So this is where you start kind of putting things together in a very logistics start to come together. So when you do start talking to your floral designers and florists, you have a good sense of what it is that you're looking for in terms of how the flowers will look, and also the quantity and the ideas of the arrangements and flowers that you actually want to get done. So the third step we're going to talk about is the B word, budget. Okay, so, and as we go over budget, I'm going to green my arrangement right now, which is basically adding the foliage in the base. So budget, the B word, is something that I want you to embrace, because any professional should not judge your budget. Your budget is your business. We're working for you, and there's no shame ever around a budget. What is important is for you to do research of what it is that you like, and also what things go for in your area. So this is a time you actually have to start engaging maybe with your local flower shops and your local floral designers. And when you're thinking of your budget, the rule of thumb is to allocate 10 to 15% of your overall wedding budget toward your flowers. If you are really into flowers and you love them and you want them to be a strong focal point, I recommend even going up to 20% of your overall budget for flowers. That is a basic rule of thumb. Now, with that being said, I know that's ideal, right? But it's never so black and white. It's always about the gray. You have to understand two things, right? There was this thing like, oh, once you're getting married, the cost of everything goes up. And that is true. And the reason for that is because this arrangement right now, right? Like, I'm making it, I don't know, this is leftover flowers. It's not a real palette, but let's say I do this for a regular client, right? They order it, I call a delivery driver to deliver it, or they come and pick it up. Whichever way is just it's a two-part process. We make it and we deliver it. For weddings, a lot more goes into it. We have to design it for you. Design is expensive. We have to transport it. We have to set it up. Oftentimes we need more staffing because you're doing a whole wedding, obviously. So the price of things goes up, but it's not because the people are trying to take advantage of you. It's just more work. And people have to get paid for their work. So yeah, I really recommend at this point really starting to think about how much money you want to spend on your flowers. And you can even call start calling different flower shops. Ask them how much is a bouquet, a la carte pricing, for example, which is pricing if you're just buying the bouquet and you're going to come and pick it up. If your a la carte pricing is, let's say, I don't know, $10 for something. If you're actually doing it, if they're coming to you, like you hire them for the wedding, that same thing that's $10 might be $16, right? It might be I don't know, $12, whatever. It'll be a little bit more is my point. But ultimately, you start to get a sense of how much the designers in your areas charge, or the florists. By the way, there is a difference between florists and floral designers. So florists tend to have a traditional shop. They have a big retail business. That's usually the focal point of their business. Designers like myself, we do different kind of work, but we have a space. I have a studio. Some people work from home. Some designers work from their garage and do amazing work. So there is a slight difference. If I'm using both terms interchangeably, it's okay, because ultimately, if you hire, whether you hire a florist or a designer, ultimately the work is pretty similar. Price-wise, sometimes I feel like florists have more overhead. Not I feel they do, because they actually have a retail shop and they have employees. So sometimes it's a little bit cheaper to hire a freelancer or a designer, but not always. So anyway, you'll get to, once you start at this stage, you know, you can call some, how is this looking? I don't know about this shape, guys. At this stage, you can start calling some people to get a sense, but you know, be respectful of people's time, because florist is such a labor-intensive job, and they'll tend to be very busy. So until, you know, you can ask generalized questions, but try not to get all the information. Don't try to get that list we created in step 2, which is your deliverables. Don't try to get all your deliverables in one call. Schedule an actual consultation to do that, and you know, so just to be respectful of their time. But you can, just as a preliminary step, you can absolutely get a sense of how much things cost in your area. So things like arches and structures, you're gonna have to talk to somebody. But every area is different. You know, New York, for example, it's quite expensive, right? But maybe, and I know in California, flowers are cheaper. Maybe, I think they have more farms. New York, almost everything is transported. Even if we get flowers locally, it's still like upstate New York or New Jersey. So it's not a city where it's just pretty much grab it. So anyway, definitely at this stage, try to get a sense of how much things cost, because that's going to be important to put everything together. And remember, there's always options, right? So don't feel bad if things are too expensive or more expensive than you thought they were going to be. That's okay, right? Because there's ways of navigating that. Obviously, if your budget is X amount, your florist is going to give you X amount, like what you paid for. But I always think the best professionals are people who try to give you a little bit more, right? So the ways I do that, sometimes I offer clients artificial substitution, which obviously we'll have to take with us after the wedding. But there's different tricks of things we can do, or really maybe you can even have a strong focal point, right? Versus having a bunch of small things that's like more labor intensive. There's different ways of working with you to get what you need to get done, right? So this is where the professional opinion matters. And yeah, but budget, think about how much you want to spend, have an idea of how much things cost in your area, and reconcile that with that list that you made. So the next step is screening. Yes, what do you guys think of the screening, by the way? I like the shape. I mean, I think we're about halfway done, but so far I like the shape. I like this direction. Okay, so screening, right? So this is the time now you have to do your due diligence to understand as much as you can exactly where your florist or designer, their reputation. This is where you read the reviews, you obviously look at their website, you check all the comments on Instagram to make sure there are no angry customers. You do your work to just at the very least get a sense of their reputation in the industry. You also want to see their work, right? So you want to see a portfolio of weddings. So that could be on their website, their Instagram pages, their blogs, their YouTube. But you want to get a sense of their actual work and what that looks like, because that gives you also a scale of like what they can actually do. You also want to make sure they're available because people get booked up really fast, especially during wedding season. So if you're getting married in May, June, make sure you talk to your designers and florists as early as you can, because people get busy. They get booked up, guys. Like, it's not a game. Like, during busy season, it's crazy. So make sure they're available. You also want to ask them, you want to make sure they have insurance. That is specifically true if you're hiring designers and freelancers, because sometimes they don't have insurance, right? So this is important because things can go wrong. You hope they don't, but you never know. Yeah, so things can go wrong. So you want to make sure whoever you're hiring has insurance just in case cancellations happen. And usually if they have insurance, they probably are able to give you a really good contract, a professional proposal. So those things kind of go hand in hand with like the basic professionalism you would expect. But as your due diligence, you should not just brush over them, because that can, I mean, God forbid, I hope it doesn't happen to you, but it can come back later and be a nightmare. So you want to make sure they are legally equipped to really work for you. Some people are different. If you are, some people, I don't want to say they're very thorough, right? And they get like a little bit anal about things. If you're like that, ask for references. It's okay. Maybe, especially if you're in a big city where there's a lot of different people you can hire, a place like New York, don't be shy. Ask for references if you don't feel fully comfortable yet. That's okay. They will give them to you. If you are in a smaller city where you don't have as many options, maybe a thorough in person, just going in there, seeing their space, getting a sense of their energy and their vibe. This might sound a little bit silly, but do their persona matches with yours, right? Like, I don't know, I think sometimes some people match our aesthetic while others don't. I know that might be a little bit controversial, but you know your people, right? You can tell when somebody kind of gets you. And this is not to say to make a decision solely based on that, but if you are a very bohemian, you like color, you like you like things to feel very romantic, maybe don't go to the florist that has a catalog of very rigid, very clean, beautiful, but very tight arrangements. That might not be a good fit for you, right? And vice versa. So if you like things to be very neat and very organized and very petite and the perfect round arrangement, which I personally love, don't go for the really, really bohemian designer, right? Like, I might not be a best fit for you. Although I can do that work too, but there are designers that really focus, that still look, and they do it really well. So that being said, try to really find your people in that sense. So now we're going to move on to step number 5, which is communication and responsiveness. So at this stage now, you already know what you want, right? In terms of the look you're going for and aesthetic. You also have your deliverables in place, which is what exactly the designer or florist will be making for you, or at the very least a good idea of some of the things, which is subject to change, of course. You also have your budget in mind, and you also did a high-level screening of the floral designers and florists that you're interested in maybe hiring. So now in this 5th step of communication and responsiveness, we're going to shortlist at least 3 different florists or designers, and we're going to set up consultations with all of them. So you going to message them, tell them the details of your wedding. So you want to in the email or by phone, which I think now a lot of this is done by email, but you want to make sure you give them your wedding date, your venue if you have it available, your guest count, and I think it's good to give an overall budget because that will definitely save time. So yeah, share the budget when you're setting up the appointment. Also check on their website, because some florists and designers, they will tell you their minimum spend for wedding work. So some people, for example, start their wedding work at 5,000, some maybe, I don't know, depending on the city, maybe a little bit less, but check that out because they might have that on their website. And if they don't, then obviously you have to inquire about it. So you're gonna set up the appointment now to actually speak to 3 different people. And when you're speaking with them, make sure that's given. They're going to respond to you and set up a time. After you send the initial email of just inquiring about those services, now they responded and they're going to set up a time to speak to you. So when they are speaking to you, this is very important. Keep in mind how you feel. Like, how do you feel when you're speaking to them? Do you feel good? Do you feel reassured? Gauge their empathy and their authority level, which is basically how do they perceive you as obviously not somebody in the industry, but are they educating you on anything? Are they a little bit, I don't know, maybe not as warm? I think florists tend to be really nice people, especially designers. So I'm a little bit biased. I'm guessing they'll be really nice to you, but I don't know. Anyway, I say all that to say, keep in mind how you feel. And if you don't feel good, it's a no. Don't ask why, don't overthink it. If you don't feel good during consultation for whatever reason, just trust that. Don't overthink it. But if you do feel good, then now it's time to really take it to the next level, I guess, right? I like video. I like in person if possible. Again, a florist might be able to do in person better because they actually have a shop. I have a studio. I don't mind in-person consultation if I know the budget and I'll work within that budget for custom wedding work, then sure, I can do an in-person consultation with you. But I don't just do it with everybody, if that makes sense. So once you're there, again, make sure you check your comfort level, ask questions. This is where you discuss pricing, ask them if they have a price list. Some do, some don't. Some just give you like a blanket pricing, like, okay, $5,000 for example, we're gonna spend it this way, and they don't have line items. And some actually have a very clear price list. So this is where you might realize you're within budget, you're over budget, you have more room in your budget for more things. So this is a fun and interesting part where I don't want to say it's fun if you're way over. If your budget is way too low for what it is that you want, I guess it's not so fun. But you have to reconcile that, right? And that's okay because again, you did all this work, but ultimately you're not in the industry. You're still figuring it out. You're not supposed to know everything. But if your budget makes sense and you want to move forward with one of them, then we're gonna go to number 6. Okay, so now the next step into hiring your wedding florist is really understanding your venue logistics. This is super important. You want to make sure your venue is compatible with whoever you're hiring. So some venues have different rules, and you have to really understand what the rules are, like setup time, transport time, breakdown time, and that's really a key role in how the work is going to flow. So when you hire somebody, we plan the whole day, right? Like those different steps of designing a wedding, but a big part of it is execution, obviously. That's the part. So the day of the wedding, things have to be very smooth. So understanding the restrictions of your venue. So some venues, for example, they don't want open candles, they don't want open flame candles. They might not want things hanging over the ceiling. They might not want candles at the bar. They might just have different restrictions. So it's really important to know that and communicate that with your florist, because you don't want somebody planning, to put 100 open flame candles at a venue that doesn't allow open flames. So just this small thing is super important, especially if you don't have a planner. If you are working with a planner, I feel like those things sometimes are taken care of. But if you're doing your own planning, make sure you ask the venue any restrictions they might have, anything, even suggestions, right? Like how to load. Is it better to load at this time versus this time? just understanding your venue is really helpful to make sure everything goes smoothly. How are we liking this, guys? I love these little grass things. They're so cute. And they give everything, I feel like this very wild, free look. Okay, so these are pretty much my 6 steps, guys, and I have a bonus step for you, but let's just go over everything. So you want to design, get inspired, know what you like in terms of your wedding style. You want to also sort out your logistics. So again, make sure to download that resource I created for you to help you organize that. And then from there, you can kind of start really balancing your budget and how much you want to spend on your wedding flowers. And then you're going to screen different florists and designers in your area to pick the best one for you. And you're going to set up a consultation with them so you can really get a good sense of the level of professionalism, talent. Remember, some florists might own a shop, but they're not designers. So you want to make sure your florist has a good design team if they're not designers themselves. And then you want to make sure you know all your venue logistics so there are no surprises and everything runs smoothly the day of your wedding. No accidents, no arrangements left behind, no drama. Just make sure your flowers are impeccable. All right, and now my bonus tip is recruiting help. So you want to ask maybe family and friends, you know, who do they think is a best fit for you? Out of the 3 people you talked to and interviewed, what do they think, right? Like, ask them to go check out their Instagram and, you know, help you. Because sometimes when you have a big decision to make, I find it helpful to just ask other people to kind of spot me a little bit, you know, like they can, because they know you well and they know what you like, they know who you are, they know your style, and maybe they can help you make a decision on who to go for, right? So yeah, what do you guys think of this? I feel like the light is pretty bright. It might be washing out the colors, but I think it came out really pretty. It's not a particularly strong palette per se, it's very muted, but it's whatever flowers I have left over. But I like it, It's more of a centerpiece than an arrangement, but it's okay. So if you guys found this video useful at all today, I would really appreciate it if you can like this video or comment or subscribe, but also don't forget to download. I know I've said this like 20 times in this video, but really, I use the checklist as well. Like when I'm doing consultations with clients, I'm always so surprised at how people don't, I realize it's the first time they're interacting with flowers at this scale is when people are getting married. So it saves them so much time and that shock that sometimes people get when they get pricing. Just knowing ahead of time, like the amount of things you need, and this checklist is I find it very valuable. And it might feel like a small step, but it saves you a lot of time and effort later and just make planning so much easier. So good luck. I hope you find the best person for the job. Your wedding will be beautiful. Have fun with the process. Trust your designer. Once you hire them, trust them. They will do beautiful work for you. And good luck. See you soon.